Welcome, everyone. It's so lovely to see you. And I'm sure other people will start coming in. So if you're here for the first time, please introduce yourselves in the chat and say, this is my first time. Tell us how you found us. And then our community is very friendly and will welcome you. And for those of you who are not here for the first time, but maybe here for the 10th, 15th, 60th, 100th time, I think I'm the only one who's at 100 though. Welcome and thank you for coming again. So we have an amazing program today and my co-host Céline will get us started. And my other co-host Leah is here as well. And if you can believe it, today is our Design the Life You Love virtual tea number 101. Yay! And we decided we're going to continue. So let's see, maybe we'll make it to 200. And this is our hearts beating with excitement and being here together with you. So our plan is, I'll talk a little bit about Design the Life You Love. And then Nicolas Ségard accepted to do the reflection. So thank you, Nicolas. And Nicolas is calling in from France, so it's late for him. And then my dear friend, Whitney Johnson, and I will talk about her book and her philosophy, Smart Growth. And you're always welcome to eat, drink, and be merry at this time. So just relax. Let's see. Okay, well, Design the Life You Love. If you're here, you're a designer of life and you know it's transformative. That's why you keep on coming back. And the youngest person who's done Design the Life You Love is 13 and it goes all the way to 90 and beyond across the globe. So welcome to our community. And we follow deconstruction, reconstruction, which is my design process. And it has 4 steps. Deconstruction is about taking the whole apart so that we can see what something is made up of. And then we look at those same parts from different angles, seeing the same things differently before we reconstruct it. And then when we reconstruct it, we need to make choices. We put it back knowing we can't have everything. And then the expression is giving it form. And together, through these 100 virtual teas, we've gone through deconstruction, reconstruction a couple times, and actually starting next week, I'd like to propose that we start a new cycle of deconstruction, reconstruction post-COVID. So with that, the principles of Design the Life You Love, this is how we think. We think with optimism. No matter how hard the problem, we think positively, and that optimism gives us the courage to go towards the future. We have empathy for ourselves and each other. We think holistically, seeing the big picture. We ask what-if questions, which is all about having an open mind and knowing often the best answers come from the worst places. And then we're working collaboratively. That's why we're here together, building on each other's expertise, knowledge, experience. And our goal is really use our creativity to get through the complexity to the simplicity on the other side, knowing that creativity can get messy, so it has a messy middle, but our goal is to get to that simplicity, clarity. And we do this by being playful. That's the mood of design. When we're playing, we're not afraid of making mistakes. We're like kids, we're playing with ideas. So welcome to playing with ideas. And I think this is a good moment. Let's come out before we dive into smart growth. And Nicolas, we would love to have you do our reflection, which comes from Leah. Leah loves asking why. And I think we started on the reflection because Leah was interested, like, why are you coming to the virtual tea? So Nicolas, why are you here?
Thank you, Eshe. first, I'm here. It's an incredible story because I rent an apartment in France for my son, and it was the first time I met Bibi, and then I know about you, and I wanted to go to the virtual tea. So I have 3 reflections about virtual tea. The first one is about reconstruction, and I will tell you why. Reconstruction because there is a smile. During different virtual teas, always smiling. People is smiling, and it's to me it's really a way to reconstructing something, because as you know, in France and in the States and all around the world, there is a huge impact of the pandemic, and virtual tea is a way to smile, is a way to reconstruct, and there is a positive feeling in this community, and it's really important to me to share this positive feeling, and it increases my energy. I can feel your energy, energy of everyone, energy of each of us, and it's the first reflection is about reconstruction. The second reflection is about explore. During the pandemic, I think the time and the distances are shorter, and virtual tea is an open window. It's opening horizons, and it's a bridge in a constrained world. So it gives me a new way to explore the world, virtual at first, but I hope one day we could meet in real life. And I also had direct contacts with some of the community, and it's great to speak during virtual tea for an hour, and then email or something like that to share something else in another time. It's to conclude on this exploration. It's an open space to me, and it's really important to have this open space on the world, but more than that, on creative people, on positive people. And in my professional life, it's quite difficult sometimes when you are the only one creative, or there are a few creatives. So it's really important to know that there are other creatives too. And the third, it's about expression, because I have to improve my English level. So as you know, I'm a French native, and virtual tea is a way for me to speak English to comprehensive people. And I can see your smile on your faces, and it's great. So I hope everyone understood what I said today. Thank you. And so it's really a joy. It's a joyful moment, and I really appreciate it. And thank you, Aisha. Thank you to the community for this moment, this precious moment.
This is so beautiful. Thank you, Nicolas. Merci. And you made me smile and smile and smile. Thank you also for following the steps of the process. That was a lovely parallel. And everyone, Nicolas and I are talking about doing a session that's all about music, right? That's and you'll help us collaborate. Yeah. I'm very excited about that. It should be great. All right. So thank you for now helping us dive into our session. And now, Céline, if you could share our Great. Our presentation will start with this quote to move us towards Whitney. So who'd like to read this quote for us? Please unmute.
I can.
Okay. We each live thousands of lives. So each day we become someone slightly different. We don't change in one giant leap, but across 1 million little steps. The most important step a person can take is always the next one. Brandon Sadanson.
Thank you, Adedoyin. It's great to hear your voice. So this...
Thank you, Haishi.
Thank you. So this quote is from Whitney's new book, Smart Growth. And with that, I'd love to welcome my dear friend and superstar Whitney Johnson. And I drew Whitney, there we go, with her hair in an S curve to honor her philosophy that is founded in this idea of S curves. And if we want to come out of our screens for a second, actually, we were going to show you her book, but we'll do that. Let me start by saying, Whitney, I'm so happy that you're here and you could take the time. And everyone, Whitney is a superstar and she's the CEO of Disruption Advisors. And Disruption Advisors is one of the fastest growing private companies in America. And she's named among the 10 leading business thinkers in the world by Thinkers 50 in 2021. And she advises executives on growing people to grow their company. She's a best-selling author. And actually, I have 3 of her books. 2 of them I have Disrupt Yourself, which is one of my favorite go-to books, Build an A-Team. And then I got Smart Growth on Kindle, which Whitney made me realize when I was holding your books in my hands. I thought, hold on one second, I can't hold Kindle in my hand, so I'm going to also order that as a physical book. Whitney is an amazing speaker. You'll see that for yourself today. And she has 1.8 million followers on LinkedIn, which is hard to even hold that number in your hand. And she was selected as a top voice on LinkedIn in 2020. Her course on fundamentals of entrepreneurship has been viewed by more than 1 million times. And Whitney hosts a LinkedIn Live with 1 million cumulative views, and that's weekly. So we can all join that. And then last but not least, Whitney and I are part of Marshall Goldsmith's 100 Coaches. And that's how we know each other. And Whitney was named #1 talent coach by Marshall Goldsmith as well. So Whitney, thank you so much. I am so delighted to welcome you. And to me, this is the perfect, we did the first 100 and now 101 with Whitney Johnson. I mean, I can't imagine. It's like a dream come true. Can't imagine something better than this.
Wonderful. Thank you, Aisha. And Seelan, if you want to put the slides back up, we can go through those. I think before I dive into these ideas, Seelan, if you can go, well, you can leave it here for just a minute. I just really, Nicola, I loved what you said about smiling and this idea of this S. And it's interesting because this quote from Brandon Sanderson, he talks about walking, taking the next step, that S and smiling, and just a fun connection to share with you all. I was just talking to Marshall Goldsmith earlier today, that's how Aisha and I know each other. And one of the things that Marshall had said to me a few years ago was, you need to smile more. And he actually shared a story of when Jim Kim, the president of the World Bank, then president of the World Bank, had asked Alan Mulally, former CEO of Ford, for advice. And he said, "You have a nice smile, you should smile more." And then he went on to say that when you are the head of an organization, your face isn't yours anymore. Everybody looks to everything that you're doing. And so, Nicola, I just love that you started off this conversation by saying that this virtual tea that Aisha has an S in her name, hosts, is it creates a space for people to smile, a place for exploration, and a place where you can improve your English, because that's actually what we're talking about this afternoon, is a model for what growth looks like, a model that helps us trace the emotional arc of growth to think about both personal growth and professional growth. And so, Celine, if you can go to the next slide, I'm going to talk you through this. What I'd like to do is explain to you very briefly what the S-curve is, and then we're going to do a fun warm-up to have you all, because we're with Aisha, we must draw, is to
Yes.
draw 3 or 4 S-curves that you've been on. So what is this at a very high level? Celine, is there a slide that actually has the S that we can show? Or should we go back? Maybe go back to the smart growth page. Yeah, let's do that. So we've got the S. Okay, so let me tell you what this is. And I know some of you are very familiar, like Annette's familiar, but we'll recap anyway. So your brain, our brains run these predictive models. And every time we start something new, we're asking ourselves, all right, I'm at the bottom of this mountain. What is it going to take for me to get to the top of the mountain? And our brain is making lots and lots of predictions, many of which are inaccurate. And because they're inaccurate, our dopamine, which is the chemical messenger of delight, it drops. The other thing that's happening is that we are mapping new territory. We're not sure what anything looks like. And so it's cognitively, it's emotionally very taxing. And there's also this identity question of, who am I if I'm not who I was doing that thing that I was doing before? And so our identity is in flux. And so whenever you start something new and you think about this base of this S, it's what I call the launch point, your growth is happening, but it feels very slow. And so you're going to have the experience emotionally of, you may be thrilled that you're here. You may be very happy that you decided to do something new, but you can also feel discouraged and terrified and overwhelmed and impatient. How come I'm not growing and developing faster? Like Nicola, you talked about improving your English. You probably have some days where you think, hi, I'm not getting better as fast as I want to. Well, that's the experience of being at the launch point. And so then you've got the sweet spot of that S curve. And as you start to do something new, you start to get better at it. You're making more and more predictions. Those predictions are becoming increasingly accurate. And so the dopamine starts to spike. You get these emotional upside surprises. It's your brain's wiring saying, yep, that works, and that works, and that works. And so you have this experience of growth is fast, and it also feels fast. So you feel exhilarated. And this is that steep part of that curve. And then the third major part of the curve is this place of mastery. And I'm defining mastery as you accomplished what you set out to accomplish. And your model, you figured it out. So you're getting a little bit of dopamine, but not a lot of dopamine. And so you can get kind of bored. You look at the territory and you say, yep, nothing new to see here. And so time seems to pass very quickly, which is part of what happens when you get older. But growth is now very slow. So you have slow, and then fast, and then slow to think about how you grow. This helps you trace, as I said earlier, the emotional arc of your growth. It helps you understand where you are to orient yourself, so then you know what's next. And when you have this mental model, it's simple, it's visual, which makes it useful. You can talk about this whether you're starting a new job, whether you're starting learning English. Nicola, I'm going to keep picking on you. Whether you're trying to learn how to draw, whether you're trying to learn how to speak better, whether you're trying to write a book, whether you're trying to do a podcast, whether you're trying to learn the ukulele, whether you're trying to learn how to sing, whatever it is, you can use this to think about this. And you can use this to have conversations with the people that you work with about, so where are you on the S curve? Are you at the launch point? Are you in the sweet spot? Or or are you in mastery? And you can also think of your life as a series of S-curves. And so what we'd like to do now, Seelan, if you can go to the next slide, is we're going to have you draw 3 or 4 S-curves that you've been on, and then share by holding up your drawing. So if we can go out of this part. Yes.
Maybe actually, Whitney, let's look at the one that I did.
Please, absolutely.
So everyone, I wanted to try this for myself and share the example with you. And I thought we have many S-curves, and one of my S-curves is learning karate. But if I were to look at the big S-curves in my life, coming to New York is one from Turkey, and then starting and having and operating a design studio is another one. And then design the life you love is an S-curve. And I was telling Whitney that it's an S-curve that lends itself to other S-curves, because I've done design the life you love, and then research design the long life, and then wrote about that. And now I'm feeling like I'm at the mastery level. But now, like, my launch point is designing my life, my own life, and kind of like putting everything that I've talked about and taught about, applying it to my life as my kids are leaving the nest. So that's kind of like an S-curve that has baby S-curves, Yep,
absolutely. Yeah, I love that, Aisha. And so yeah, we would love to have you draw those out. And it looks like there's some, Darlene said the top part looks like a plateau, and that's absolutely right, is that you get to that top part. And I'll just make a quick comment on that as you're thinking about drawing your own S-curves. If you think about mountain climbing, mountain climbers will tell you that any altitude above 26,000 feet is known as the death zone. And so you're in this place where you're so high up, your brain and your body start to die. And you think about it, for you, this idea of a plateau, it can quickly become a precipice. Why? Because if you stay there too long, and you're no longer learning, if you're not growing, you're stagnating, you're not forming these new neural pathways, these new synapses, your brain and your body are literally starting to die. And so you find a way to, as Aisha drew this, to keep climbing, or you find a way to invigorate what you're already doing because you love to do it, to push yourself back into the sweet spot. So it's a summit, not the summit, or you jump to a new S-curve entirely. So what pictures do you all have?
Yeah, let's go to the gallery view, and everybody could hold up their S-curves.
So okay, so Darlene, I can see yours. And Edie, I see yours. Darlene, do you want to say what one of yours is?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I have 2 different places I moved to, and I have getting my degrees and my postdoc.
Yeah.
And transitioning into faculty positions, coordinator, chairperson roles. So they're mainly about living and working, but there are other ways I could draw.
Yeah, and I love that too. If you think about it, you could have your professorial one big S-curve, and then have these mini S-curves along that curve.
Like a fractal.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a fractal, 100%. Someone else had one that they want to put it up. Thank you, Darlene, for getting that up there quickly. Who else?
And Celine, did you have a chance to take a picture? If everybody holds their S-curve up for a second, we could do our group picture.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Taiko, hello. Do you have your S-curve? Let's see it.
I'm writing now, drawing now.
Oh,
all right.
So fun. And
cool.
Annette has some markers. So fun. Love it.
Annette has always the best drawings.
Yeah.
Annette, do you want to share?
Sure. My big launch point right now is working on the business where we use the power and gift of travel and immersive leadership journeys to help C-suite leaders with communication, connection, and resilience skills. and also the social impact for underserved students to do the same thing to build those life skills too.
Nice. Wow, I love that. Those immersive travel experiences. And now people are probably hungry to travel. Oh, so good.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, I love it.
So shall we go back to the
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
to
Oh
the
yeah,
slide?
let's absolutely. So we can. All right, so let's see. Okay, so let's do, now what we're going to do is so speaking of the fractal, Darlene, we're going to go a little bit deeper as you've drawn these different S curves, and this idea of your life is an S curve. It's also a series of S curves, but then you can take your career and it's a series of S curves, and you can take a job, and again, this idea of a fractal, you've got curves within the curve. And the reality is that every single day is an S curve as well. And so what we would like to do now is go a little bit deeper and think of a major formative S curve in your life. So something that has really helped shape who you are. And then look at what was the launch point like of that curve? What was the sweet spot? What was the mastery? Draw that out. And then Aisha, we probably have, oh yeah, share by describing it in the chat, and then I can read them and comment on them.
And maybe Whitney, let's go one more.
Okay, perfect.
So that you can tell us a little bit more about the stages of growth now that like everybody can think about their S curve, the formative one.
Yep. Okay, I love that. Okay, I'm getting distracted. Product development and management, motherhood, writing fiction. Yep, so good. Okay. Yeah, I'm having a little bit of a squirrel problem. I'm getting distracted by your comments. Okay, so here's what we have in the book. You can go into this in detail, but here's a further way to orient yourself. So I've just outlined for you the launch point, the sweet spot, and the mastery. Now, in the launch point phase, there are two components to that. So there's the explorer phase, and I know Nicola talked about this is a place that's safe to explore. And so sometimes you decide, I am going to jump to this new S curve. So for example, Annette's talking about these immersive travel experiences. That's where people are going to choose to jump. But sometimes we're pushed to a new S curve. For example, with COVID, we were all on the pre-COVID curve, and now we're on the post-COVID curve. And so we're always making that decision of, now that I'm here on this S curve island, do I want to stay or do I want to go? And so we have questions that you can ask yourself to say, do I want to stay here and explore and make a decision of, yep, I think I'm going to stay a little bit longer. And if you do decide to stay longer, you decide that this curve of playing the ukulele is in sync with your identity and your values, and it's hard, but not too hard. And you believe you can do it, even though it feels like a little bit of a stretch, you go to the collector phase. And the collector phase is, think about it kind of like a product market fit of, yes, I want to be here, but can I get the resources that I need in terms of, can I get the lessons? Is the expertise available to me? So for example, I might say, I want to learn how to play cricket, which is really popular in India, but I don't know anybody who knows how to play cricket. So it's probably going to be harder for me to learn it. Not to say that I couldn't, but can I get the resources to do that? Can I collect those resources? If I can, then I'm going to be able to move into the accelerator phase. And this is that sweet spot. Remember, it's the fast and it feels fast. An accelerator phase, for those of you familiar with self-determination theory, you know that there's this idea of, and I've changed the mnemonic to, you feel competent, you feel autonomous, like I'm in charge here, and you feel a sense of relatedness to the people around you and to what it is you're doing. So this is that place where you're going fast, and you go into the metamorph phase. And this is your identity isn't still completely transformed in the metamorphosis, but you want to stay focused here so that you can complete the cycle and move into that anchor phase where this thing that you started to do has become you. You don't run, you are a runner. You're not playing the ukulele, you are a ukuleleist. I don't think that's a word, but I just will pretend like it is. And this is the place where you want to pause and reflect and look and survey, you're at the top of the mountain, see what you accomplished, but also honor and celebrate the fact that you did it. This thing that you set out to do, whatever it was, no matter how big, no matter how small, you accomplished that. And we know that emotions create habits. This is the work of BJ Fogg. So you really want to recognize and celebrate what you've accomplished. And then once you've done that, this again is a place that it's ephemeral. You can't stay there forever. You move into that mountaineer phase, which we've already kind of discussed, where you're at the top of the mountain, you keep climbing. Now, one other thing that I would like to say about this, we talk sometimes about peak performance. And when it comes to peak performance, I would actually argue that it's the ability, it's not just being in the sweet spot, it's the ability to move through all of this growth cycle, to navigate the launch point, to move through the sweet spot, to complete the cycle, to get to the top of the mountain. And when you do, you make that decision to keep climbing, because it's that cycle, that process of iterating, that understanding of what growth looks like that allows you to increase your capacity to grow. And I believe that all of us, that growth is our default setting. We are wired to grow. It is a great human longing. It's a deep belly yearning, and understanding what this looks like, it's going to make it easier for us to continue to grow. So with that, I think we're ready. I bet you all have some curves that you would like to share. So Indrani says, I would always wanted to learn the ukulele. Well, yeah, it's kind of popular now, right? And so maybe you should learn the ukulele. Let's see what else.
Whitney, I just wanted to also say, I love that slide, because metaphors are so powerful in helping us understand new ideas. In the metamorph one, we talked a lot about metamorphosis in the context of designing your life during COVID. And it was just a perfect thing, because, you know, we were caterpillars before, and then we sheltered in place in our cocoons. And then, you know, we're coming out with our butterfly wings, and it's kind of like follows that. And when you're at the top, that's where you take off with your wings into a new S-curve, you know.
And you know what, now that you're saying
that,
and now that you're saying that, Aisha, the other thought that's coming to me is that from your process, when you get to the top of the curve, that's the place where it's constructed, but it's time to deconstruct so that you can reconstruct.
Absolutely. And I would love to map out your S-curve to deconstruction, reconstruction, because also, you know, when you're done with a design and you're at the top of, you know, you're at that mastery, right? That's where you need to let it go. And you know, and with design, you know, whether it's a product or a life or, you know, a work of, you know, a project you've done, you let it go, and it has its own life, and you start afresh. And I think there's a lot of synergy in what you're talking about, and designing your life or work or anything.
Yeah,
you know?
so good. All right, so should we look at a few of these? Oh, this is so fun.
Look at what Jack is saying. The hero's journey is an S-curve.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Yes, it completely is, because you get called to adventure. You're at the launch point of the curve. Do you want to be here? You're in this place of messiness and muck, but then you start to find your bearings, and then you move along the curve, and you get to mastery, and you get the boon of the hero, and then you take it and you return back to where you began, and you start all over and try to share with people what they're doing. So I love that. Okay, let's see, what else do we have? So Aisha, do you want me just to comment on these? Do I get to comment on these?
Absolutely. And how about you comment on them, and in another 5 minutes or so, we'll take the question and go to a breakout. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Denise, you said literary life goal is to read more than 50 books every year, every year with the goal of 50 books, study how to read more books, increase to 100 to find how to live that, and we'll read 100 books. Whoa, I love that. So you're basically doing like climbing, and then you're just keep climbing. So you're basically continually finding a way to put yourself into the sweet spot, because you like being on this S curve of a literary life. So you're not jumping to new curves, you're just expanding out the curve so you continue to stay in the sweet spot, which I love. Okay, so Aisha, you talked about the pre-COVID, post-COVID. Jane, you said ran a fintech consulting biz, crash happened, brought him out in January 2009 and started, yep. And I love that, because what's interesting about being at the launch point of a curve is it actually doesn't matter whether you were pushed there or you chose to be there. The question is that once you get there, what are you going to do? And I love that you said, I started all over. And the beauty of that, Jane, is that no S curve is ever wasted. So everything that you learned in that fintech crash, even though it was probably really painful at the time, has served you well as you've done everything that you've done next. Okay, so Jack, Navy pilot, Nugget, pre-flight school, T-34 straight level. Okay, T-2 aerobatics, carrier landings, F-8 fighter, Top Gun Comet. Yeah. Oh, that maps really beautifully. I love that. Okay, perfect. Oh, Elaine and Jane both agree. Susie, you said founded and ran. So your launch point, founding it, then you probably got into the sweet spot. And then it sounds like maybe at some point you sold it and then you decided to do something new. Denise, living and working in Japan, maybe you didn't know Japanese at first, but you learned some. You figured out how to do the sourcing, then global sourcing, and then you got to the top of the curve in the US and EVP role. This is fun. This is quite an august group, Aisha. Okay.
Yes, and Whitney, what's interesting, it's also a very humble group. Nobody ever talks about their accomplishments, except the S curve brought that out. And now I'm learning myself, like who's doing what.
As our millennial friends would say, you're an S tier group. Okay, let me just go a couple more and then we can go to the next part. Let's see. I'm going to hop down all the way to the end. So let's do Patricia. So at the launch, you were digital pioneer, then large scale product development at Citi. And then now you're a consulting and adjunct professor in design thinking. So that's interesting. So digital pioneer, this looks like 3 different curves, but at the same time, from a digital perspective, you could argue you're at mastery, but you're now doing these S curve loops, where as a professor and a teacher, you're taking everything that you know about systems thinking and bringing people. So basically think about this as a mountain and you're going down and you're bringing other people along up the mountain with you. I love that. Authenticity means ST. Okay. All right. Sasha, emigrating from Ukraine at the age of 4. This is so cool. Okay. One more, and then Aisha will go back to this other thing. So sustainability practitioner, Indrani, social compliance manager, then director of corporate strategic partnerships, and then sustainability subject matter expertise. So it's so interesting, isn't it, where you're practicing, and a lot of you got this pattern of being masters of your craft, and now you're able to go and bring other people along on that mountain. Okay, love it. Shall we continue, Aisha?
This is too cool.
Yeah. You have a lot to talk about now, sharing all your experience.
I know, and the authenticity plus S tier, it's an inside joke, because actually Denise, who's the amazing book reader, and that's just one of her S curves, named our group, this community, the authenticity, because it's so authentic, and people can be vulnerable and just show up as themselves. And then she named me the mayor of authenticity. But now you've added another dimension to it, that we're S tier. So it's I
want to actually add something to this. I think this is really neat. Is that, and then Teiko's talking about learning English. So what I love too is that you said that people can be themselves, and that also means that I really appreciate how people are willing to talk about their accomplishments, because sometimes it's almost more vulnerable to talk about our accomplishments than it is to talk about things that we haven't accomplished. So I really appreciate how there's this space for people to talk about what they've done. It's very, very cool.
Oh, that's a beautiful thought.
If I can say something, yes. I will say that in France, there is different way to speak about success. We are not surfing on the success. It's quite strange, but I think there is cultural difference between Americas and Europe or France.
Yeah.
And it's really different. That's why it's an interesting thing to hear you about this, because I can feel the difference between your culture on mine.
In terms of talking about successes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We all have different nuances around what we feel is acceptable to talk about versus not. Yeah, right. Okay, let's go to the last part.
Exactly. This is where we get to share and learn about each other even more. Okay.
So I'm going to give you 3 tips. And before I do that, I do want to apologize. My team scheduled another appointment for me at 6, so I'm not going to be able to stay the whole time. So I'm really sad about that. But I'm going to give you some tips to get you thinking further. So we talked about this S curve, and then we were talking about being at the launch point of the curve. And we talked about how that's a place where we feel fairly tentative and it's new and uncomfortable and awkward. And the reality is that the older we get, the more we can insulate ourselves from actually ever doing anything new. And one of the gifts of the pandemic was it gave us practice using the muscle of doing new things. And that's part of what I think is happening in the world right now. And I know Annette's heard me talk about this, that I think it's the great aspiration is we're realizing how capable we are. We're saying, I want to do more. I want to break out this idea of this metamorphosis. And Aisha said the butterfly. But at the launch point, as you're doing new things, I want to give you 3 tips. The first tip is to recognize, is to think about this S curve as a way to talk yourself through doing something new. So you're in this place and you can say, all right, growth is happening, but it's not apparent. And I'm mapping new territory. It's exhausting. My identity's in flux. I feel awkward and I'm supposed to feel awkward. This is normal. And that's important because sometimes when we start something new, we say, oh, I'm not good at this. Well, yeah, you're not good at it right now, but that doesn't mean you won't be good at it. And so this allows you to give yourself some grace and just talk yourself through something new. And it's very useful for teenagers and college students as well. It's this idea, this is normal. Now, the second thing that you can do to move off the S curve is we talked about dopamine a minute ago. And if you think about the S curve, it's actually moving along it. It's a dopamine management exercise because at the launch point, it's dropping, in the sweet spot, it's spiking, and in mastery, it's flat. Well, what if you can take what we know about what makes it spike and create that synthetically when you're at the launch point? And how do you do that? You do that by setting small, ridiculously small goals. And this builds on the work of James Clear in Atomic Habits and the work of Jeff and Jamie Downs around streaking. Is you say to yourself, all right, I'm going to go back to ukulele again, or let's take, I want to learn Japanese. I want to learn Japanese. Well, I don't have an hour a day to learn Japanese. I don't even really have a half an hour. But you know what? I do have a Duolingo app, and I can do it for a minute a day. And so you say to yourself, I'm going to go onto this app, and I'm going to spend 1 minute a day on Japanese. And so if you do even 2 minutes a day, what happens is your dopamine spikes. And so now you're getting dopamine at the launch point of the curve, doing something that you're not good at all because you beat your expectations. And so you can use these really small goals to beat expectations. You get dopamine and you start to build momentum that moves you off the launch point of the curve. And then the third thing that I would suggest that you do is that you have accountability partners. And Aisha, you're very familiar with this because this is something that Marshall looks a lot at, is this idea of say what you're going to do to someone by when. So for example, I am going to work on Japanese every day for the next week for 5 minutes a day. And by the way, I'm going to tell Susie that I will report back to Susie. Denise tells Susie that she's going to report back to her. And that way your probability of doing it goes from about 10% of it might happen to 95% because you said what you were going to do by when. So you say to yourself, it's supposed to be uncomfortable, number one. Number two, you set small, ridiculously small goals, meaning even if it's 11 o'clock at night, you'll still do it. And number three, you have some type of accountability. And those are things that will allow you to move off the launch point, move into the sweet spot of any curve that you are on. Those are my 3 hacks.
Love the 3 hacks. It's very applicable and easy to remember. Thank you, Whitney. Mm-hmm. And you make the that painful moment in the beginning, and we have something very similar at the beginning of design projects and designing your life, where you don't know what the future holds, but you want to go there. And so, and I often talk about, like, that's the point where you deconstruct, because deconstruction gets you into what you're thinking about and makes these smaller pieces. And you're looking at it from a different perspective, but I think it's those smaller pieces are more feasible or manageable.
Yeah,
you know,
I love that. So the deconstruction is you're pulling it apart, making these really small, there's like the ridiculously small goals at some level, pulling it apart, seeing it from a different perspective, a different vantage point that makes it easier to move forward. I love that. Fantastic.
And I love that. I love yours.
Whitney, it's Evelyn Rodstein. Just a quick question. When this first evolved, it made so much sense because people were in corporate jobs and had one major job and one major learning curve. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, we're all in the middle of 5 or 6 of these at the same time. We could be having a COVID learning curve. We could be in a new role where we have to learn technology and digital and something else at the same time. That's in some of the stories we've been looking at. What's your advice for people who are involved in multiple learning curves and at different stages on all these curves without going bananas?
Yeah. Oh, it's a great question, Evelyn. So what I would say, a few things. Number one is that your life is a portfolio of S curves, as you have just pointed out.
Yes.
We know from project management that you really can only successfully do 3 to 4 projects at a time. We also know from a neuroscience perspective, you can sort of hold 3 to 4 ideas at a time. Mm-hmm. So one starting place is to say to yourself, okay, I want to try to get to the point where I've got 3 to 4 curves at most. You can't always do that, but that's what you're moving yourself toward. The other thing that you want to think about is this idea of we look at how you optimize a portfolio of curves, and if you're looking at a standard bell curve distribution, you want to have about 60% of your curves in the sweet spot and no more than 20% at the launch point and no more than 20% in mastery. So let's let's take work, for example. If you have 4 projects, you want to have 2 where you're like, you know, I'm really good at this. I feel like I'm enjoying it. I feel engaged. I'm working really well. You probably want to have one where you're in mastery, where it's quite easy. You're very comfortable. It gives you this great sense of confidence. You're able to bring other people along, and you want to have one where you're at the launch point where you're learning new things. The challenge comes is if you've got 3 of these at the launch point, then what you can say to yourself is, okay, now I know why I'm overloaded. And that's what happened during COVID, is that we were all of a sudden on lots of new launch points. So you say to yourself, okay, what do I need? If I'm at the launch point, I need support. I need words of encouragement. I may need training. I may need to get, a consultant to come in and help us move this along, et cetera. And so by understanding sort of the optimal portfolio of S curves, if it's out of balance, then you can start thinking very tactically and practically, what do I need to do to rebalance that portfolio of curves?
That is brilliant. Write about it.
All right. Right. On that note, thank you, Evelyn. Whitney.
Yes.
We're going to do our breakouts.
Okay.
And the breakouts are going to be now armed with your 3 tips. How can we all think about our smart growth and getting past the launch point? So everyone, let's do our breakouts. I think Celine prepared it. But before we do that, I want to say, Whitney, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I know you need to go, but this was simply amazing. It was so good to see you and learn from you. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Okay, Aisha, thank you for having me. And thank you to all of you. You were absolutely lovely and wonderful and fun. It was really a delight to be with you this afternoon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. So Céline, do you have our breakouts? Everyone, we have about 12 minutes, right? We'll do 10 minutes in breakouts and then come back. So everyone, it's 6:03 and I want to be mindful of your time. If you need to leave, please jump off. If this was your first time, thank you for coming. Please come again. We're addictive people, and now I hope you're hooked. And Whitney was amazing. It was a great way to start our next S-curve. The next round or cycle of Design the Life You Love. And Lee and I had a chance to meet in person yesterday, and we talked a little bit about this, where I said, I want to now start another round of Design the Life You Love exercises and cycle, and deep dive into some of our exercises. So that's the plan. And Leah and I are going to map it out and start next week. And then we'll continue to have speakers, and we'll kind of weave them in and out to inspire us. So that's the idea. And now starts the after party. So whoever needs to leave can leave, and whoever wants to spend another 15 minutes is welcome to hang out. All right.